Hello and thanks for joining College to Consulting. In this class I'm going to go over the 3 things required to get an offer. Now this is really about the 3 components for the entire interview process and what you need to solidify in order to get the offer. Okay, 3 areas you must ace for the offer. The first part is receiving the invite. Before you can even think about getting an offer, you need to be able to get to a first round interview. So we'll go over what are the components for that, how do you do it, etc. Second is standing out in the behavioral. It sounds super cliche, but it's very true. The interviewer, when they're talking to you during the fit portion, is wondering, can I hang out with this person in an airport? If we were stuck in an airport together, would I want to hang out with this person? Would I want to hang out and get pizza or eat or do whatever with this person? So that's a very crucial part of the interview process as well. And lastly is the case. Now the case is not just about analytical ability. It's not just about communication or just about structure. It's also a test of how would you interact with the client. If the interviewer was your client, is this how you would talk to that person? Okay, so let's go into each of these parts in more depth. The invite. So what happens? Well, it's when recruiters will screen your application. And first off, what happens is big companies get a pile of resumes and cover letters, etc. And what they usually do is they split it among different teams. So it would be me and another person would be a team that would have to review 10 or 20 different resumes and cover letters, and another team would have to review their 10. What we're usually asked then is to pick the top resumes that you like, or we have a quota. Pick only their 3 that you like. And then the other teams would do the same. So when this is happening, we're picking the best people to interview with the company. We're looking at different parts of the resume and different parts of the cover letter. Now, because you're kind of lumped into a team, and now our group and me and my other person are on the team to pick with different resumes and who to pass on to the first round interview, you're going to be rated and compared to your peers. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you're going to be rated to your peers at your school. You're not really going to be rated to peers at a different school or a rival, but it's going to be the people who you go to class with and who are also trying to go for this consulting process as well. So, how do you ace this area? One is go to the information sessions. Go there and go on time. You go to the information sessions, it does 2 things. It allows you to get a sense of who the company is, but it also shows the company that you're interested. If you can get your name down on the sign-in sheet and really get your name out there, they'll know who you are. Also, try to get there by using your alumni network or friends of friends. It's probably very certain that you have some alumni that have some connection with the consulting firm or whatever company that you're trying to get to. Talk to them and ask them to give you some tips or to even meet up with you and to help you with getting an invite to your interview. Also, talk to current and former employees about the culture of the company. If you talk to current and former employees, what you're doing is you are trying to understand some more data about the company that you cannot find on a website. So, for instance, you can learn about what are the cultural events that they do, what do they do as a company to hang out. Do they have movie nights where some companies do this? Do they have a cruise on a yacht, which some companies do as well? Do they just do one big day of volunteering? These are things that you won't really find online, but you'll find by talking to the different interviews, and this will help you with material that you'll need for your cover letter. Okay. Also, clean up your resume. Clean it up and make it very strong for the interviewer. The resume is basically a summary of everything that you've done, all your accomplishments essentially, from an academic and a work-related standpoint. And if you can have it very polished with numbers and other results in it, which we'll get into later, that will really help your resume stand out. Next, I cannot stress this enough. Take time to write the cover letter. A lot of people go lazy, and what they do is they copy and paste parts of the cover letter to different companies. I don't like this at all. And I tell my students to never, ever do this, and I will call them out on this. The reason why this is bad is, well, there's the obvious risk of you putting in the wrong company name, which I know you'll try to do control find and replace LEK with booze or whatever. But it's not just that. The other reason I don't like this is it's so generic. When you read the cover letter, you can tell that this person did not do any research on this company. Whereas people who write cover letters that are very specific to Bain, McKinsey, BCG, Accenture, Deloitte, those people show that they've done research and it really sticks out. So take the time to write a cover letter from scratch and to not just fall into the laziness of copying and pasting. Lastly, align your skills with the skills that the job needs. If you are going for an analyst position and it says we need people who understand Excel, analytics, whatever, talk about that and really focus on that rather than focusing on parts that are not needed for that certain job, such as talking about logistical planning, which is probably more needed for a supply chain type of company and not an analytical one. Okay? All right. With the behavioral or the fit portion, there are a lot of other components too. But first, what happens? Well, during this, essentially, you're going to be asked to talk about yourself, past experience, and to ask about the company. What this means is that you'll be given questions such as, tell me about a time you did this, tell me about yourself, what questions do you have for me? The three basic questions that you're going to get with any interview. But what you should do is you should make these answers to these questions more conversational. So what you want to do is you want to show how do you fit. So you want to have a conversation rather than just asking and answering questions in a very transactional stance. So how do you do this? Well, give very structured and concise answers. So what this means is what we will do later on in the course is we will drill you on how to answer behavioral questions, but we'll drill you on how to answer them in a very structured method that I like, that has worked very, very well for my students. It'll keep you under time and it'll keep you engaged, and it'll show all the different components that you need to show for the behavioral interview. Next, make the answer very easy to understand and relatable. Make it so that the interviewer has an easy grasp of what you are trying to communicate, and if you can, relate it to work that you've seen the company do. If you've read a white paper on what the company has done in the growth space or whatever, talk about how this experience maps very close to that. Even if your experience is with a club, like an athletic club, you can talk about how the approach you used was very similar to the approach that this company used, then it'll be much stronger of a connection. Next, tell a story. I'm all about this. You don't want to list a laundry list of all the stuff you do. Instead, tell a story of your answer. So if someone asks you, tell me about a time that you showed leadership, instead of just saying that you were president of this club and that was it and you had to deal with these responsibilities, talk about why was it tough, what was the action you took, and what was the ultimate result. Next, illustrate your story. If you can, this is not for everyone, draw it out. What I mean by that is you're going to have a portfolio with you, or those leather binders. Essentially, take out some sheets of paper and draw out some graphs. This is major points if you can do this, because consultants communicate by that type of means. So this will show your interviewer that you know how to do this, and it'll also be very, very engaging and very memorable. Next, relate your actions to similar actions from the company. Just as I mentioned before, when you're talking about how your story aligns with what the company has done, do some research. Go onto their website. It's not that hard. Find their part that talks about experiences or insights. Read a white paper or a publication from that company. Read it, see what they do and how their process is distinct from other companies, and then talk about how your story maps very, very closely with that process. And last, connect with your interviewer on interests outside of work. If you can start talking about things outside of work, you're doing really, really well. What this means is you can talk about some clubs that your interviewer was in college, or what they did outside of college or outside of the job or whatever. Now you're talking about mutual interests, and this is really how you fit. And this will tell the interviewer that if I were to be stuck in an airport, I would love to hang out with this person because we could talk about X all day. Okay? Last is the case. So, what happens with the case? A case is when you are given a hypothetical or real set of questions about a business. For instance, you're asked, company is losing X profits, how do we grow? Our company is looking to expand into a new geographical area. which one do we do it into? These are the types of questions you're going to be asked for a case interview. Okay? So, you are not only tested on your answer, but more so on how you derive the answer. So, it's not really there's a Scantron or an actual answer to get, but it's really about how do you approach that problem? Are you structured? Do you have some type of hypothesis? Are you asking for the right amount of data rather than asking for everything? This is really what the case is about. It is really to delve into your thinking process. So how do you ace this area? Best thing I can say is be structured. This is the cornerstone of where people do really, really, really well with cases and where people do not. If you do not have any structure and you just kind of try to wing it, this is where I have seen multiple people just fail at this. Be structured. We'll go into a lot of structure and frameworks later on in the course, but just keep this in mind. Next is be engaging. Talk to your interviewer, draw it out, make it as if you really, really like this product, and think about how you would put yourself if you were in the shoes of the consultant talking to the client. You got to be engaging and really be into it to showcase that energy. Next is give relevant examples to support your ideas. So a lot of people do this thing where they come up with solutions and that's about it. The better people, what they do is when they come up with a solution, they give an example of a company that has done something similar. And by doing this, you validate that your solution could work rather than someone who doesn't even do that at all. By doing this, it shows two things. It shows that, yes, now there's some quote-unquote data for the solution to work, but it also shows that you've done research on the industry or you know about different companies, which is needed for consulting. Next, create diagrams and flowcharts. What this means is if you can draw out how your process or how your solution would work, this will communicate to the interviewer what you plan to do, how this would grow or how this would save money, etc. And it also shows this is what consultants do. This person right here is ready to go and to be a consultant. Lastly, as I keep mentioning this, treat the interviewer like a possible client. Remember, it's not only a test of your ability, but it's also a test of how would you speak to a client if you were put in front of a client. So that's why we talk about being structured, engaging, and being very, very analytical with what you're trying to do. So that's an overview of the 3 parts that are needed to get the offer. I'll see you in the next classes.